Today, we wanted to talk to you guys about the power of pause and intentionally taking time to rest. For me, when I sit around and do nothing, I feel lazy. If I'm sitting inside my house and kind of not doing anything just for 20 minutes, I always tell myself I should be doing something.
I did 3 seasons of The Real Housewives, and I still felt like, even though I was kind of at the peak of my reality TV experience, I felt like it was time for me to take a pause because my mental health needed it at that point in time. Even though I was walking away from a nice paycheck and I was walking away from brand deals and endorsements, I needed to take that break for myself so that I can be better sound mind, in sound health for my kids and for my partner and for my family. I get that I'm winning, but right now, what's the best thing for me is to take a break.
A lot of our listeners may not feel that they have the option to do this. Maybe we can offer some practical tips for how to approach this.
If you don't say something, nothing changes. Sometimes you have to.
Welcome back to another episode of Scrubs to Stilettos with me, Dr. Tiffany Moon.
And me, Dr. Nicole Martin.
So Nikki, you were a little late to today's filming. What's going on there?
So I apologize, guys. Look at this. I just brushed my hair. I threw it back. So this morning, I was doing a presentation for Grayson's first grade class. They're learning about the human body, and the teacher had asked if any of the physician parents wanted to come in and talk. So I was assigned the lungs, appropriate, right? Breathing, we do anesthesia. So I decided to do an experiment with the first grade class. We were going to anesthetize crickets, which, listen, if done appropriately, works wonders, right? So you go to the pet store, you buy a case of crickets, you take them to the class, they're jumping around in their little cage, and then you get a cotton ball and you soak it in SIBO and you drop it in the cage. And then the crickets inhale the volatile anesthetic and they go to sleep. Caveat, a girlfriend of mine, who's also an anesthesiologist, already did this for her kids' class, and she told me it takes a drop of SIBO. Well, I think I soaked the cotton ball a little too much in the SIBO, and then the crickets would not wake up. Imagine standing in front of a group of first graders, and all the crickets are dead, and they're not waking up.
You killed the crickets?
I didn't kill the crickets. The crickets just took a really deep anesthesia period of time. It took me 10 minutes to wake up. But the anxiety inside those 10 minutes while we were there in front of the kids and they were all why aren't they waking up? I was terrified. I was if these crickets don't wake up, I'm never going to live this down.
That is hilarious.
But then they started boop, boop, moving. And I was
a little...
Yeah, their little legs start. So it's funny because when they fall asleep, they actually fall asleep with their legs up. And so they look dead. And then once they wake up, they kind of turn back over and start jumping again. Oh, it was the longest 10 minutes of my life waiting for those guys to wake up. But I did not kill the crickets. I just, ran them a little deep, but eventually the crickets woke up.
We call that a delayed emergence.
Yes, delayed emergence, exactly. But it is, honestly, Tiff, if you ever have the chance to do this at the kids' school, it was so cute. They thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I talked to them about how important, the air that you breathe is, and you want to make sure that you are breathing clean, healthy air. So you have to take care of the environment and avoid smoke and pollution. And then we talked about, when you have surgery, you breathe the anesthesia. It was a very cute experience other than the 10 minutes of anxiety where I thought I murdered the crickets.
That is so sweet that you went to do that. This is kindergartners, right? So they're 5?
Yeah, six turning 7.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I haven't. Nobody at my kid's school has asked me to go any demonstrations or anything. One time I went for Chinese New Year and I read a book to all the kids that explained what Lunar New Year was. And I passed out red envelopes to all the kids with a $2 bill inside. That was the only time they've ever asked me to do anything at my kid's school.
Our school's very much on in parent involvement. Last week, one of the orthopedic surgeons, one of the dads came in and did a whole thing on bones. It was really cute. But then, of course, Miami traffic. So I don't know if you've read, but they're doing this very intricate bridge building in Miami. It was supposed to be done in 2025, 2026, but now it's being pushed back to 2029. They've spent like $800 million building this bridge in Miami, and all it's done is create massive traffic jams. So then after I almost killed the crickets, I was flying home to try to change to get pretty for you and for our podcast. But the time obviously got away from me with the traffic. And so you guys get me in scrubs, just
No
like the first grade
worries.
class.
You are just as beautiful. Okay, let's jump into this week's weekly obsession before we do our episode. What do you got?
So we have all been fighting a nasty cold for the last couple weeks, and Grace had a sore throat. But like the adult lozenges, you know, like the Halls and those, they don't taste good to a kid because they taste medicinally, you know, mentholish. So I found these at Whole Foods actually. They're called Lollies, throat soothing pops for kids, and they're made with organic honey. And the ingredients are pretty clean considering. And he had no problem taking these, guys. He would suck these down, no problem. So if you have a kid with a sore throat, these Lollies taste really good for them. They're made with organic ingredients and honey, and they helped. So Lollies.
Awesome.
You know,
Yeah,
the start of
everybody's
flu
been
season.
having this like back to school cold. Am I right? Because last week I had a little tickle in my throat. I was a little sniffly because they just went back to school like what 2-3 weeks ago. And so
You
they're
still
like,
sound nasally, and I still have a lingering cough.
see, I know it sucks. Okay.
What about you? What's your weekly obsession?
Look at this. This is my Somni headband that I wear to go to sleep.
Shut the front door.
Oh my God, there's a bird outside my window, like tapping my window.
I hear
I don't know
it.
if you can hear
Okay,
it.
you don't
Like,
sleep with that. No way.
okay, you don't have to sleep with it on, but it has these electrodes, sort of like our EKG electrodes, right? And you have to change them like every 4 nights, except I change mine like every 2 nights because I don't know, I just don't like using old electrodes. And you Velcro this apparatus to your head. Stop
I
laughing.
want to see Daniel's face when you get into
I
bed
have
with this thing.
insomnia, and I will do just about anything and spend any amount of money to have a good night's rest.
Okay, wait, but what does it do? Is it supposed to help you
know,
sleep better, or it's a monitor?
No, it's not a monitor. It's not like an Aura ring and tells you like how many hours you slept. It like you put it on and then you do start session and then it sends these like electrical activity to your head. You know, I really should know the science behind this thing, but I just bought it like a week ago and I'm just using it, but I didn't actually like do my normal deep dive into like all the science behind it and like do a PubMed search to see if there was any randomized controlled trials. Like I literally bought it, tore it out of its package, slapped an electrode on, and then put it on my forehead. So I decided
Did you
that I
notice
would.
that you slept better with it?
It's only been a week, so I don't know. And I was on vacation this last weekend because we had fall break and I had sleep scores on my Aura of between like 85 and 90, which like never happens. So was it because I've been wearing this or was it because I was on vacation this weekend? Like who knows? But I decided that I'm going to give it like a good 30-day try. And then I think that's like a 30-day money back guarantee, and let you know. But like so far, I think it's helping me sleep, which
I am so curious about this because I used to be a great sleeper. Before kids, I used to be able to sleep wherever, whenever. I think that's part of like the doctor in us, right? You can fall asleep in a call room. However, after kids, I don't know, my brain doesn't shut off. Even when I get into bed, I'm like, oh crap, did I order that shirt for Spirit Day? And then I have this and like all the appointments. It's just like a constant, thought process. So it's really hard for me to go to sleep. And if this helps, I will put this funky contraption on my head too.
I will report back. So it's only been a week, but so far I really like it. Okay, So, this week's episode is just going to be us. We are talking about something interesting that's kind of come up between my friend circles lately, and we're calling it the power of pause. Because I think we're in this hustle culture, right? Like you are hustling to your kid's school, doing the demonstration, coming home, doing a podcast. I'm sure this afternoon you have a million things to do. And we never just really like sit around and like do nothing. For me, when I sit around and do nothing, like I feel lazy. If I'm sitting inside my house and like kind of not doing anything just for 20 minutes, I feel guilty. I'm like, oh, I should go organize the closet. Like, oh, I should go to that stack of Amazon packages in the laundry room and like process some of the returns and, you know, all that. Like, I always tell myself like I should be doing something. But in the news, earlier, there was a Australian tennis star. I'm probably going to butcher her name, but I think it's Daria Katsankina, something like that. But she is a big time Australian tennis star. And she made the decision to take a mental health break and step down from her competitive tennis at the peak of her career. It's almost sort of like what Simone Biles did a few years ago when she was training, right? And then there was a whole documentary about it. So today we wanted to talk to you guys about the power of pause and intentionally taking time to rest.
I was so excited when you sent over this topic as something to talk about on the podcast because it's something that resonated with me. I did 3 seasons of The Real Housewives, and I think I was pretty good on the show. You know, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I think a lot of our followers and listeners were very vocal that they were sad when I decided to walk away from the show. I felt like it was kind of like I had already established myself as a character on the show. I was kind of like, after 3 seasons, you get comfortable in your skin. That's really when you're hitting your stride and you've kind of got this TV presence down. And I still felt like, even though I was kind of at the peak of my reality TV experience, I felt like it was time for me to take a pause because my mental health needed it at that point in time. Even though I was walking away from a nice paycheck and I was walking away from brand deals and endorsements and, you know, my public presence, I felt like I needed to take that break for myself so that I can be better sound mind, in sound health for my kids and for my partner and for my family. But it's a hard decision because when you're seeing that money come in from the brand deals and from, you know, your business is thriving, it's really hard to take a break and step back. So I applaud this athlete because, you know, when you're winning, that's when you typically want to keep playing. You want to keep, you know, gaining those awards and using that momentum, even if it's at your own demise sometimes, right? So it takes a lot of awareness and I think a lot of courage to be like, I get that I'm winning, but right now, what's the best thing for me is to take a break.
Yeah, I mean, you might be winning on the outside, but it doesn't feel like winning on the inside. And then you have to ask yourself, like, well, what's the point of achieving these accolades, making all this money, getting all these brand deals if I just feel exhausted? I don't feel passionate. I'm almost feeling this dread when I have to go do the thing that I'm supposed to be amazing at. And I think, like you said, it takes a lot of courage to admit that and take a step back.
It's definitely not an easy decision, right? Because I think there is a lot of societal pressure, right, to succeed and to make money and to keep doing all of these things. And sometimes it's viewed almost as a weakness, right? When you walk away from something like, oh, she wasn't strong enough to push through, or she was scared. It sometimes people put a negative label when you choose self-preservation, right, over success. And I think that is one of the things that makes it even harder to walk away.
Yeah. And this term, I think people call sunk fallacy, right? I've already invested so much into my profession, career, relationship, even. How many people have stayed in a relationship that they knew probably wasn't the best and maybe wasn't going to go the long haul, but you're like, but we've already been together for this many years and I don't really want to go back to dating again. And like, we do have our good moments and you start like rationalizing it, you know what I mean? Even though like you don't ultimately want to end up with this person. I mean, my ex before my husband, for sure, now that I can see it clearly with hindsight, we should have broken up probably like 6 months into the relationship as soon as that honeymoon phase was over. But I was like, oh, but like, I don't want to break up because we have concert tickets in October. So like, I'll just stay with him until then. And most of the time he's a nice guy. Like he's not an asshole all the time. And I've already invested so much into this relationship. And like, I'm a third year medical student. If I don't stay with him, it's not like I have time to date other people.
Yeah,
So I'll
you just keep coming up with excuses.
You just keep coming up with excuses. And, sadly, I see a lot of women physicians doing this. So I think, practicing medicine right now in the current landscape, I don't know how you feel, Nikki, but I feel like the way I practice medicine these days is not what I necessarily thought I would be doing back when I was in college and in medical school and in residency. It kind of has morphed. And I don't know if I just, was naive and didn't quite understand, or if the world of medicine has actually changed so much in the last decade. And sometimes I think about like, oh, there's so many other opportunities that I want to explore outside of medicine. But oh God, I went to school for so long to become a doctor and I worked so hard and I sacrificed so much and I don't want to leave medicine. But do I not want to leave medicine because I truly have a passion for it? Or do I not want to leave it because I'm good at it and it gives a decent paycheck and I like, being a good doctor and being needed and helping patients. Like I'm really conflicted right now. And when I read this story about this tennis player, like it really hit home for me.
Yeah, I think that's a hard decision, right? Because I think there's so many things that play into it, right? Is it that you're not mentally challenged anymore, right? Because work has gotten mundane? Is it because the politics surrounding medicine have changed so much? Is it because you're like emotionally and physically drained? Like it's such a complex thing, I think, to dissect, right? But I think you said it earlier, when you start to dread the thing that you're doing, right? And I think it creates more anxiety than joy. I think that's your body's way of telling you that you need to reevaluate the situation. Like for me, yes, there are things about medicine that have changed over the years, particularly surrounding the like policy and like, insurance of it all, that has made it much more of a business than a human interaction, right? And that to me is made medicine lose some of its like emotional allure, I guess. But I still love patient care. Like I love my days at the hospital. I love doing blocks. I love doing procedures. I find it extremely rewarding to teach and when patients are in pain to relieve them of that. Work still brings me joy. I still enjoy going to work. On the flip side, when I was on The Real Housewives and it came time to film, I dreaded every scene pretty much. Unless I was filming with Gertie or maybe Lisa and Adriana, like my good friends on the show, I was going into every single scene like if I was playing a game of Russian roulette, right? Like it was just very anxiety provoking for me. I dreaded the days I filmed. And that was for me when I was like, okay, this gives me anxiety. This is bringing me negative emotions. I knew that in the state of postpartum anxiety where I was already at, that was going to be a recipe for disaster. So I think you kind of have to like look inward and see how you're feeling when you're going into something. And if you're feeling more negative emotions than you are positive, then I think you need to ask yourself why, and is it time to take a pause?
Yeah, and I applaud you for doing that because I think a lot of people wouldn't have been able to because like you said, on season 3 you get your sea legs, you kind of know how it works cuz season 1 you're like I don't know what the fuck's going on. You know what I mean? Like and your paycheck starts to be better
Yeah,
cuz
you really start like after season 3, you start getting a really nice paycheck, guys. Like,
yeah,
you're making six figures in,
oh for sure.
you're
At
making like
least 6 figures.
plenty of six figures when
Yes.
you're only working, let's say, 12 weeks out of the year, right? So you're making a really nice salary in 12 weeks. You're only working maybe 4 days out of the week during those 12 weeks filming. So it's not like you're filming every single day. Plus, when you're on the show, your social media is growing, you're gaining more followers, then you're getting brand deals on top of the show. Like, it is like a snowball effect when you do these reality series for like a long time. It's hard to walk away from that money because it is kind of easy. I'm putting that in quotes, money that you're making. But at some point, the money isn't worth the headache and the stress that comes with it. So if this girl, again, I don't know what her reasons were, but it sounds like it was kind of like mental health related. And, Simone, if the joy of what they were doing no longer was there and it was more negative emotions, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. If you're not happy, that money doesn't do anything for you. Like, okay, you're going to stare at a bunch of zeros in your bank account, but be unhappy. I bet you people would rather be happy with less money.
For sure, for sure. So, for some of our listeners who may be resonating with this conversation and there's something that they maybe want to let go of, what are some practical tips that we can give them? Because a lot of them are like, oh, well, that's easy for you to say, like you have good savings, you have a whole doctor job to fall back on. This girl, even though she's quitting tennis this season, I'm sure that she's earned plenty that she could take a sabbatical and be comfortable. A lot of our listeners may not feel that they have the option to do this. Maybe we can offer some like practical tips for how to approach this.
Yeah, and I totally get that, right? Not everybody has the opportunity or the option, right, at this very moment. Like maybe you are unhappy in your job and it doesn't bring you joy, but it's your sole source of income and you have a family to provide for. So we're not telling everybody if you're not happy with your job, quit. Obviously, that's not a feasible option for many people, and we understand that. But I think being honest with yourself and finding what it is that brings you joy and trying to increase that throughout your day, right? So if music brings you joy, if reading a book brings you joy, if working out brings you joy, maybe there's a way where you can incorporate that into your day more often so that you can increase the amount of positive experiences you have throughout your day.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would say after you get really honest with yourself is to tell your loved ones, because sometimes your loved ones think that you love something because perhaps you're giving the illusion that you do, but inside you're like dying, right? And sit down your partner or a trusted friend and be like, "Oh my God, this thing is like really killing me. I dread it. It gives me anxiety. Like, what do you think? Do you have any ideas? Can I lean on you for support?" Because a lot of times people are like, "Oh my God, I had no idea you felt that way. I thought you loved being on Housewives."
It's true. Or maybe you're in an office, right? And you've been designated the presenter role, right? But you hate public speaking. You hate getting up in front of the office and having to give these presentations, and it creates a lot of anxiety for you. But there might be other roles within your office that you can fill that maybe don't bring you so much anxiety, right? So if it's just this one part of your job, say the public speaking part that really is creating a lot of internal turmoil for you, well, maybe you can talk to your boss and be like, "Hey, I love this company. I love what I do. But this part of my job is, I'm not loving this. Is there a way that we can transition my role a little bit?" I think if you don't say something, nothing changes, right? There's a reason the saying exists that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Sometimes you have to be verbal about the things that you like and don't like in order to create change.
Yeah. And I think that just goes for like advocating for yourself. I don't think I like knew what advocating for myself was, or even that terminology, until well into my 30s, because the way that
I
I
think I'm going
grew
to say
up,
into my 40s because I'm going to say that I really didn't become the person that I am today until fairly recently. And I think that goes for a lot of women. And we've talked about this before. I don't know if it has to do with our upbringing, right? Because I grew up in a very traditional Latin household, or if it's just society in general. But I find that, women are sometimes raised to be like ladies and soft spoken and to kind of acquiesce and go with the flow. Because if you rock the boat or if you speak up, then you're considered a bitch or you're considered, disruptive. And so difficult and labels, these negative labels that we associate with advocating for yourself because of the way we were raised. And so I find that a lot of times women have a hard time speaking up when they feel uncomfortable. Like, I mean, even when you go, there's like all these memes of girls doing their nails and they hate the nail polish and they can't even say anything to the lady that's painting their nails. Like, guys, if you don't like your nail polish and you're paying for them, you need to tell her to stop and change the nail polish.
I know. No, I
It's so
used to be
true.
that girl. I had a massage one time, and the guy, I like my massages deep. Like, I want my face in that head cradle, and I want to be like, like that's how much I want.
Me
Like, I
too.
want you to get to work. I
Elbows,
need
elbows,
your
and yes,
elbows in there. Like, I need you to break a sweat during my massage.
same. I
And
hate
this
soft
one guy
massage.
was like giving me a lotion application. And you know what? These hotel spas, it's like $295 or
Yes,
something,
they're
for
not
a
cheap.
60-minute massage. Whereas like, my normal massage place down the street from my house is like 120 or something. It's like
Yeah, it's
exorbitantly
expensive.
expensive. And he's like giving me a lotion application for $295. And my stupid ass, I couldn't even, he's like, how's the pressure? And I was like, like, I should have been like, can you do it deeper? Like, I'm paying for a deep tissue and I don't know what's wrong with you, but it's not a deep tissue. And then I remember like I would go to this Mexican restaurant and I like to have the enchiladas, but the sauce on the side, and I would cut it and then dip it into the sauce, but I didn't want it to come with the sauce because then it got soggy.
Doggy. Mm-hmm.
And so of course, the enchiladas came and the sauce was already on them. And I kind of like gave this look or whatever. And the waiter's like, is everything okay? And I was like, uh-huh. And my husband's like, tell them you ordered it with the sauce on the side and it came wrong. Like, tell them that's not what you wanted. And I was like, no, it's okay. Like, I'll just eat it. Like, why do we do that?
I don't know, but obviously we all do it, right? Because I can name countless times where the same thing has happened, and then you go home and you're like, oh, you're so mad at yourself for not saying something, and then you're mad at the experience because it wasn't what you wanted to begin with, and so it's like a lose-lose because you didn't speak up for yourself. But I do think it has to do with the way we were raised. I think it has to do a little bit with culture, and I think also society for a long time, women were kind of viewed for like as a little bit less than, right? And I think now there's more awareness, and I think we're doing a better job of teaching our children, our little girls, to be strong, to be independent. But I don't think that was the case, at least not when we grew up. I think it was, you have to be quiet and prim and proper and don't speak. Otherwise you're difficult. And I don't think that speaking up and advocating for yourself makes you difficult.
Yeah, I make fun of Gen Z a lot. I do. But I will say that I think one thing that they are getting right, amongst many others, is that they have really prioritized advocating for themselves, not just like,
I mean, maybe
going
a
with the
little too much.
flow.
I think the pendulum is also like swung like on
Yeah.
the opposite side. Like
Yeah.
the other day, I was doing a block. It was 7 a.m. People are probably going to be mad at me for this, but whatever. It was 7:45. You're supposed to be at work at 7. I'm looking around. I haven't seen a resident. I'm like, where's my resident? We have a block to do at 8. I start setting up everything. And then like at 7:50, I get a text message like, I have a really bad headache this morning, and I thought my meds were going to make the headache go away and I was going to be able to make it to work on time, but I'm just not going to come into work today. First of all, you were supposed to be here 50 minutes ago. You should have sent a text at 6 a.m. that you weren't feeling well and that maybe you were going to try to come in. Not 50 minutes later, 10 minutes before a procedure has to be done. So now I'm scrambling to set up everything because you're not here. Like, and it's a headache. Like, what? I never would have called out sick for a headache. Are you insane?
In residency, I never called out a single day. And I've been faculty at my current job for 13 years and I've called out 5 days. Like, that's crazy. And I have to tell you a story. I went to Costa Rica to scout resorts for my next Lead Her retreat. And so we were visiting, like having site inspections and looking at all the different multiple retreats. Okay. On the way back, it was supposed to be Costa Rica to DFW. There was weather in DFW. So there was a ground stop, meaning nothing can land at DFW. We got diverted to Houston. This was at like 9 p.m. They told us they were going to get us on a flight at 11 p.m. to go from Houston to Dallas, which is like a 35-minute flight. Okay. 11:30. We're like all waiting at the gate, all the passengers, all of our phones chimes. And it's like, your flight has been moved to 11 a.m. And we're like, oh, and I was like, I have a cranny with the CA1 in the OR tomorrow at 7:30. And I'm not going to make it. If it's at 11 a.m.
Cranny is short for craniotomy. So
brain surgery.
It is a brain surgery that Tiffany had scheduled at 7 a.m. with a first-year resident. First-year residents have only been practicing anesthesia for a couple of months at this point. So it's a very hands-on day for Tiffany because she has to really supervise this person very closely because they're very green with regards to their anesthesia experience.
Yeah, they've only been at their job for 2 months, so not their fault. The resident was great. He just never done that before. Oh, and to be sure, I'm not doing the brain surgery, you guys. I'm just doing the anesthesia for the brain surgery, which is still very important, right? Okay, so I'm like, okay, I can call in tomorrow and take this 11 a.m. flight and get back to Dallas from Houston. Or I looked at my husband and I was like, how tired are you? And he's like, I'm okay. And I was like, let's just rent a car. And so we rented a car from Hertz at 11:30 and got back to Dallas at 3:30. I promptly went to bed, did not shower, which I always shower after the airport because it's gross. That's like a rule, but I broke my own rule. Woke up at 6:30 and then scrambled to the OR. And I just feel like people these days, they would like for sure have called in.
I think everybody would have called in. I think that speaks to like our generation because we were like kind of the pre-work hours generation. I mean, there were work hours. Nobody listened to them. I did 80, 90 hour work weeks as a resident all the time. I don't feel like no one followed those rules back in our day. I remember doing one of these massive spine cases and I was a resident and I was sitting in the room and I had chills. I felt super sick. And my attending walks in and he's like, are you okay? You look unwell. Like you're pale. You don't look well. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not feeling well. And he went like this and he touched my head and he was like, Nicole, he's like, you have a fever. He's like, you're super hot. Go to the ER. I go to the ER. I had 103 fever, ended up having pneumonia. And I was sitting there doing my spine case with pneumonia, fever and chills, and I was still at work. But does that mean that you and I are just really bad at taking pauses? Because I think these are not necessarily good examples of how people can push themselves.
Although I will say, like, I worked that day from 7 to 3 and then I went home and took a nap. Like, it was fine. You know, I did not feel like I was so tired that I jeopardized my patient. I mean, I still slept like 3 hours.
You slept in the car, I'm sure, during the drive while Daniel drove.
But I think now that I'm seeing examples of these women who are like, no, I'm at the top of my game and like, I'm taking a break because I need to, like, for my mental health, not because my arm is hurt or whatever. And I'm kind of taking note. I think, not to take up too much time, but like, I think for Lead Her Summit 2026, I think I'm not going to do it. I think, well, right now it's like right before it, right? And so I'm like in crazy mode and it's taking up so much of my mental energy and I have anxiety and, there's like a dozen speakers and somebody can't come last minute and all these moving parts. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to take a year off from doing the summit. If I decide to do it again in 2027, so be it. If this is the last year, so be it. But I no longer feel guilty about not doing something solely because I feel that other people are expecting me to do it.
And I think that's the key, right? To really do that like soul searching as to why is it that you don't want to continue doing this? Is it because you are unhappy internally, or is it because you feel external pressures? And I think if your reasons to continue to do something are because you feel like other people would be upset, you would be disappointing other people. If you are making decisions on your life based on other people, then I think you really need to reevaluate that, because the truth is that other people don't care.
They actually don't.
They
You
really
think you're
don't
disappointing
care.
people and they've forgotten about you 24 hours later because
Correct.
everyone's thinking about
You
their
know,
own
like
stuff.
even celebrities will be trending for 24 hours and then it's old news. So as much as you think that people are going to care and that it's going to impact their views on you, it really doesn't. In your head, you're making it a bigger deal than it really needs to be. And you need to do what's going to make you happy. So I think as we wrap up this episode, if you're at a point in your life where you feel like you need to take a break, know that it's okay. There are people like world tennis champions that are taking breaks, Olympic gold medalists that are deciding to take a break for their own well-being. And I think you just need to do a little bit of soul searching and figure out why it is you want to take a break and what it is that brings you joy. And take a tip out of Tiffany's book, Joy Prescriptions, and prescribe yourself more joyful moments.
Yes, perfectly said. Thank you for joining this week's of Scrubs to Stilettos. If you're not already subscribing, following, you need to do that so you never miss an episode. And we will catch y'all all next time.
Bye, guys.